Hey guys, it's Autumn Ray with Beyond the Record, and today I have soul artist Cecily here with me today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I want to get started and just ask you a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how'd you get started with music in general.
Yeah, so I am from Washington, D.C. and grew up in and around Washington, D.C. Went to college outside of Philadelphia, and I started singing when I was about 12. I always loved music, but I started taking voice lessons at 12, but I was studying classical voice. So I was mostly singing art songs and arias all through high school and part of college. And about halfway through college, I decided, I actually think I want to do music and, being a vocalist as a career.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to do classical music because it just wasn't my love. I
Hmm.
wanted to do soul music and R&B and jazz because that's really what I grew up listening to in my home, and that's kind of what made me feel most at home. And so about my sophomore, junior year of college, I started trying to focus more on songwriting and learning about the music business as well. And it just kind of grew from there. I moved back home after college and, started meeting musicians in and around DC. And then, since then, that was over 10 years ago, and I've released, 3 albums now. So it's been a journey for sure.
Wow, I love that. And like, I remember when we got on the call, I said that, I don't hear a lot from, especially like Washington, D.C. artists too. So I think that's super interesting. Like, obviously, I love like Ari Lennox and stuff, and she's from
Mm.
the area. So, who are some inspirations that, maybe that are Washington, D.C. bound, or maybe just in general that have helped you with your music?
Yeah, I mean, just about DC. DC obviously is not known as a music city. People think politics,
Mhm.
but we actually do have a really rich musical history. And I actually used to do a show that was like a tribute to DC music history,
Ooh.
specifically around jazz, soul, R&B, kind of going all the way back to Duke Ellington, because Duke Ellington's from DC, and
Mhm.
also going all the way up to more current, like people like Johnny Gill, Raheem Devon, and everything in between, as well as touching on go-go, which is like DC's kind of indigenous funk music that became a thing in the 70s and still is a thing. So we have a really rich history here, and I'm always happy to talk about it. People know Marvin Gaye from DC as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, and I think DC was the first, what they call chocolate city, which
Mhm.
means the first city with a majority Black population. And I think that had a really unique influence on the music culture here. Um, because I always say, growing up in DC, like, there was never any role or any job or anything that you didn't see a Black person doing. Like, Black people were doing literally everything. Like,
Mhm.
the mayor is Black, my mom's a lawyer, she's Black. Like, yeah, like everyone was Black. So I didn't realize until I moved from this area as I got a little older that, like, it was such a blessing to never feel like there was anything that I couldn't do.
Mhm.
Like, I never felt limited. Even when I was studying opera and classical music, I never felt like I couldn't be a Black classical artist because, we had Marian Anderson who lived here. We had Jesse Norman, not, excuse me, not Jesse Norman, Denise Graves, who is from DC. So it was just like, I never felt like there was anything I couldn't do. But, and I love DC for that. I always like to shout out DC for that influence. But in terms of like my particular musical influences, some of the people I really were drawn to, like when I got to an age when I could really pick out what I wanted to listen to on my own,
Mhm.
um, were people like Phyllis Hyman,
Mm.
Shaka Khan,
Yes. Okay.
Anita Baker.
Mhm.
Faith Evans, I'm a huge Faith Evans fan.
Mhm.
Um, as well as actually, I just organized and performed in a tribute to Gil Scott Heron, and I'm a huge Gil Scott Heron fan. He also has a connection to DC. He lived here and worked here, recorded here for over a decade. So yeah, it's a lot of people, but specifically for me, I think 70s soul music is my biggest influence, like sonically. That's what
Mhm.
I find myself pulling from the most.
Wow. No, I love that. Yeah, just like even just to backtrack a little bit on the rich history of Washington, D.C., I love that you shared that. And that's definitely something that listeners are definitely going to be more in tune to look out for too, because I've also seen a lot of artists too, just like even performing there. I have a coworker that lives in the area as well, and she's very much into music. So that's really interesting that what you're saying about the music scene there now too, even, past history and currently. So that's all stuff that like I even learned too. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh yeah, always happy to talk about DC.
Yeah, and I think that's so beautiful too, like how like you grow, especially like, as a black person, black woman here too. And it's just that sometimes like being in, I think it's a different experience from what I'm hearing from people. It's just when you're in a place where there are no boundaries and nothing
Hmm.
seems like out of your lane or out of scope, or you're crazy for thinking that you can do that. And I don't think that is said about a lot of places in this country. So, I,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that you had that experience too.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when I got to college, I kept hearing people throw around this word like marginalized people. And I was like, I am not marginal. Like I'm always at the center of this. Like black folks are at the center of my existence. I don't know what this marginal term means. It doesn't apply for me.
Exactly. Like, what are you talking about? Like, come on.
Right.
And I think it's just people are just
Yeah.
a little bit uneducated with that too. And I think they just try to like, pigeonhole black people for like what, like centuries. So yeah, we're not
Hmm.
doing that over here. We're not doing
Right,
that.
right, 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 right.
We can do anything. So.
Hmm.
So a little bit about, your music. How would you describe your own music in 3 words?
In 3 words,
Mm.
um, soulful, authentic, loving.
Ooh, yes, I can hear all of that. I
Yeah.
can hear that. What are 3 songs from your own discography that fans that are just hearing about you should listen to first?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a song called Clumsy, which came out in 2019, which is my number one kind of listen to song on all the streaming services. People love that song. I love that song. I think Clumsy would be the first one. There's a song called Grow, which was on my first full album, which was a lot of people's first introduction to me. And that's a beautiful tune. I still love that one. It's very uplifting. And then I think more recently, I would say I Am Love, which came
Mhm.
out about a year and a half ago, and as a single, and was included it was the lead single from my current album. And that song it's just like, I don't know, it's like a newer edition of me, if that makes sense. So I think those three would be a good starting place.
Oh, no, that's perfect. That is perfect. And I definitely want to get into like your latest release as well, especially like and you ended your project on I Am Love too. So I love that. No pun intended.
Thank you.
Yes. So you released The Awakening Part 2 last year, then the first part in 2019, which you alluded to in telling fans what songs they should listen to first from you. So how would you describe the changes that you've made in your artistry in that, 5-year gap?
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is I originally had planned to put out part one in 2019 and part two in 2020. But,
Mhm.
some things happened in 2020
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
thwarted those plans. Um, but I think it was actually for the best because it gave me more time to write the songs and to also just have the lived experience to create the songs. And I think even though a lot of it lyrically, a lot of these things I was already kind of working with in 2019 when I put out part one.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think I grew a lot in those, 4 years in between projects, just in terms of my own comfortability and my artistry and my own wisdom just as a human being. A lot happened in that time period. I lost my dad, which was really tough.
Mm.
And I think, unfortunately, my mother in law just passed away. So me and my husband were talking about, when you lose a parent, like how much you grow.
Mhm.
It's very tough, but you gain such a deep wisdom about life and
Mhm.
what life is about. Um, and I think that, all of that I learned ends up going into the music. So I think when you listen to the projects back to back, you can hear that growth, and you can
Mhm.
hear that wisdom a little bit. So yeah, I think that's the main thing is that I just grew and changed.
Yeah, it is definitely reflective in both of the projects. And yes, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother-in-law and your father too. It's
Thank you. I appreciate that.
of course, absolutely. Absolutely. And it kind of like goes into my next question that I have for you with the Awakening Part Two is before I even press play on this project, I quickly scanned like the track titles and I was like, wow, all of these track titles like lined up. It just feels good. Like it feels like
Mm.
healing, like honestly. And then I look into more of your work and I see that you describe your music as, music therapy. And I
Mm.
definitely felt that just even like I said, even before I pressed play. So what does musical therapy mean to you and why did you choose that, to describe, your music?
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, just a quick note about the song titles that's kind of funny is that
Mhm.
you'll notice that like four or five of them have the word love in
Mhm.
them on Awakening Part Two. And so me and the producer, when we were talking through all the songs, we kept getting them mixed up because the titles were so similar. Like, wait, is this because I love you, or is this I am love, or is this love a lot? Like, it's just so many loves thrown around. But anyways, I just thought that was funny. So yeah, I do describe my music as a kind of therapy, and I think it's because the main thing I try to do in my work is, and I've been trying to do this for a long time. I think I succeed most of the time, which is great. Which people tell me that it's successful because they tell me the experience they have in listening. I try to create a space where you can let your guard down.
Uh-huh.
Um, I try to create a space within the music, within the listening experience that you can really be vulnerable and
Mhm.
be your full self and stop running for a moment. I think that in our current like life and society, everything's very fast paced and
Yeah.
we rarely have time to sit down and just be with ourselves and actually listen to our hearts and process and feel our way through our experience. And so I really try to create music that gives people an opportunity to do that. I seek to use my own vulnerability, lyrically, vocally, to just invite other people to be vulnerable and to give themselves that space to feel and to just be and let that be enough.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I can hear too from listening to this project is like you are very vulnerable in your lyrics and even in how you inflect your voice too. So it wasn't even
Mm.
surprising to me that you are like a vocal teacher as well, because I think is that something that you teach your students to, like express themselves, obviously, like through their voice, but in how they should be doing that? Because I find that in your work.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I definitely try to do that. And that's definitely something that I try to teach as well.
Mhm.
There's a lot to teaching singing, and because the voice is a very like interesting instrument and it's very unique and it's very more than any other instrument, it's very much connected to our emotions and our nervous system and all of these things. So
Mhm.
um I think that I try to teach people to really tell a story. Like, don't just sing the words and the melody, be the storyteller. Like, whatever the song is, as soon as you, as the vocalist, sit in front of that microphone or stand in front of that microphone, you are the storyteller. And so you have to understand the story of the song in a very personal way. And I always tell people, whatever you feel, the audience will feel, you
Yes.
know?
Mhm.
So you really have to get yourself there, put yourself there, I should say, even before you open your mouth. Like, even before the first note, you have to be in that space, in that story. A lot of times I tell people it's useful that if they can't find that emotional connection, to set a scene in their mind. Like, where are you when you're singing these words, you know? And
Mhm.
before you even start to sing, like, envision it. Like, is it raining? Is it
Mhm.
nighttime, daytime? Are you inside, outside? Who's there? You know? What
Mhm.
does it feel like? Is it warm? Is it cold? You know, all of those things, they help you get in the, set yourself in the scene like an actor. But I think, the best actors make us feel like they're not acting. And I think
Mhm.
as singers, we do the same thing. Because there's a lot of times I sing songs that I don't feel that way anymore,
Mhm.
mostly in a good way. Like, I wrote a sad song and now I don't feel sad anymore.
Yeah.
um, but I have to find some type of connection to bring me there. So yeah, it's a fun practice, and I think I actually learned a lot in my classical voice training around that, because you are singing a lot of songs from operas, which are plays, So you have to find a story in that, even when you're singing in a different language.
Mhm.
So that adds even a more, challenging other layers. Like, can I really embody the story in Italian, even though I don't speak Italian? So I think I took a lot from that is still really useful in what I do today. And I try to pass that on to my students as well.
That is so cool. I'm so happy I asked that question for you because okay, so you learned how to sing in different languages. So what is like that process? Like you get the lyrics and then you just have to like do you have like a dialect coach or something to teach you how to like kind of say each word correctly when you're singing, or it's kind of just more of like a free fall situation? And it's so cool.
So yeah, so most trained classical vocalists
Mhm.
can sing in English, Italian, German pretty comfortably, and French. Those are
Ooh.
like the main four languages. And so pretty much any trained classical vocalist that you study from, and I studied with a wonderful woman named Alina Kaczynska at
Mm.
the Peabody Institute in Baltimore.
Wow.
And so she gave me a lot of guidance in terms of understanding how to sing in all these different languages. And she would write out phonetically the sounds. So that helped a lot. I think German is the hardest for me personally.
Uh,
German was the hardest, but yeah. And then she would also have me on my own time sit and translate all the lyrics.
oh,
For most of these songs, like, if it's written in Italian, you can go online and look up an English translation.
uh-huh.
But a lot of times it's not a direct translation. It's more of a rewriting of the lyrics to still fit the melody, if that makes sense. So she didn't want me to do
Oh.
that. She actually had me sit down with a like English to Italian dictionary or Italian to English dictionary and translate everything. So that I could really understand. She let me cheat. She made me do it. And this is back when you had to use an actual like paper dictionary. There wasn't Google Translate.
Oh, that is
So yeah,
cool.
yeah, a lot of guidance in there. And then, I mean, a lot of people who study jazz voice, particularly in college, will learn to sing not only in English, but also Portuguese and French, because those are common languages that like jazz standards are written in. So it really just depends on what you're doing, kind of what languages you're singing in majority of the time.
Wow, that is very, very interesting because that's also something I did not know. And I think that because when you said that they fit the words to match the melody, I always wondered that because, like, how is it that this is a different language? Like, obviously, I mean, I only speak English, and like I can understand Spanish like a little bit, but when I'm listening to another, a translated song, right? I'm like, how does this fit so perfectly. So now it makes now, now you just told me the code. That's why.
Yeah, usually they just write an entirely different song, like especially in jazz. Like I remember when I decided to learn Autumn Leaves in French,
Uh-huh,
and French is a language that I studied like in middle school and high school, so I can actually translate it. Most majority of things I read, I can understand. And
uh-huh,
so I looked at the French lyrics, which is the original lyrics. It was translated into English like later. I
uh-huh.
was like, oh, this is a totally different song. And it's much sadder, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is literally like, okay, so in English, for example, in English, the first line of Autumn Leaves is the falling leaves drift by my window.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh.
The first line in French is c'est une chanson qui nous revient, which means this is a song that reminds me of us. Totally unrelated.
Yeah, that's definitely different. Yes, that is two different songs. Wow. That is
Totally different.
That is so interesting. Wow. Wow. I was like mind blown, because that's really crazy. They're just like out here tricking us, like, oh yeah, like I don't know what I'm hearing, but I like how it sounds, and it sounds like the song. I know the lyrics too, in whatever,
Hmm.
your fluent languages. So wow. Thank you
I
so
mean,
much
because if
for
you
sharing
think
that.
about it, you kind of have to approach it that way. Like, because you're
Uh-huh.
not only, it's not, if you do a direct translation, it won't fit the melody. Like when
Yeah.
you're writing songs, the melody has to work with the amount of syllables in the word, you know?
Yes.
So if
Uh-huh.
you do a direct translation, not only will it not match like with the syllables, but it also won't rhyme.
Yeah,
So
right. Because 'cause I'm like, how is it still rhyme? Like, yes, because I was always so confused, like, how is this working? But I guess I should have just looked up the lyrics, honestly, that would have given me the answer. I've been so confused, but actually hearing it from you, it's like I'm learning with that too, so, wow, that makes sense because I was like, "How this is like witchcraft." Like, how is this the same? How is
right.
it the same? That's so good. I love that. Okay, so let's go back to your project, but that was a really good, like, side quest we did right there. Um, um, do you have a favorite on your project? Do you have a favorite on Awakening Part 2?
Mm. I think my favorite on Awakening Part Two is it's a tie
Uh-huh.
between Love Allows,
Mm.
which is just a poem I wrote that I set to music with my friend Jacob Ungerleider, who plays
Oh.
keys on there. Well, I also co-wrote I Am Love with. And he and I just went in and did it like there was no, like usually we record music nowadays, the band will record and then you go back and do the vocals so that
Uh-huh.
the vocals can be really tight, you know?
Uh-huh.
But he and I just did it almost like how we would do it live. Like, but in the studio, we just did three takes in a row and we just picked the last one. And I
Mm.
feel like you can hear kind of the freedom in that. Like it's not We didn't do it to a click. There's no other instrumentation. It's just me with my voice and him on an upright piano. And I love it. It's one of my favorites on the album because it feels like a breath of like a breather, you know? I just
Mhm.
really like that. And then I think my favorite piece on the project that's like more produced, I'll say, is Cause I Love You, which is
Mhm.
like the current single. Because it's kind of a different side of me. It leans a little bit more R&B than most of my work. And I also think it just has like a very, I don't know, it grooves, like it locks in, but it also floats. And I just feel like the fact we were able to balance those two things, I just love that, like production wise, I love that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That was "Cause I Love You" is my favorite. My second favorite is "Domination" too. I really like that one.
Mm,
I really like the
hmm
lyrics to it. I think it's very timely, into what how everything is right now currently. But I
hmm
do think that I think it's really fun. I think that song is very fun too. But it's also just
mm.
like there's so much like power like in your lyrics in that song. So that's what I love.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Especially you talked about production too. I wanted to speak with you about that because I
hmm
feel like the production on this album was just like made for your voice. So for real though, like it was like perfectly crafted for your voice. So can you tell me a little bit about the process, like just maybe it's an overall process and how you came about having this overall feeling to the album?
Yeah, it really was a process too because I kind of wrote on most of my albums. I've only had a few other writers, usually like two or three. Yeah, usually two or three other like co-writers who I'll write music with. But on this project, I was just kind of being more exploratory and I was writing with lots of different people. And so I had like five different writers I worked with on this project. And, you know, when you're writing with different people, they kind of all bring their own element into it. And so when I was trying to craft this project, I was listening back to, you know, just our songwriting sessions and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how am I going to make this into one cohesive project? You know, like it was hard for me to hear how to make it all
Mhm.
flow. And so I reached out to my friend Drew Kidd, who's a producer and artist himself, amazing pianist, keyboard player. And we had worked on Awakening Part One together. He had helped produce two of the songs on that project. And so I reached out to him and I told him what I just told you. Like, I have all these songs and I don't know how they go together. And so we used to live like 5 minutes from each other, which was awesome.
That's
So
great.
I
That's
would just
great.
yeah, I know it was really nice. He moved, but it was nice when he lived real close. So I started just going over his house like at least once a week. And
Mhm.
we would kind of like work through the songs and try to figure out like what would work production wise, like any shifts that need to happen and what the plan for recording was because we just had demos. We hadn't actually gone in the studio with the band yet. And we also just did a lot of listening, like
Mhm.
listening to projects we liked and figuring out what we liked about it and, you know, trying to come up with some reference tracks for each song as well. And kind of just figuring out like what will work. And I'm really thankful for him in that process. We did a lot thinking about sequencing in terms of the record, like how
Mhm.
does it feel to listen through the whole record and like how does everything flow and that it really was a really fun process and also a very thoughtful process like we put a lot of thought and intentionality into the record and I'm glad that you can hear it and I think the good thing about me and Drew is we have a lot of the same influences in terms of like what we just love to listen to. I think
Mhm.
I lean a little bit more soul R&B. He leans a little bit more funk hip hop, but
Okay.
it's like we can kind of balance each other out and figure out, like you said, what works for my voice and, you know, my messages as well. And he really got into the messages. Like which of the book of the work, which was awesome. I didn't say this yet, but the project was actually also inspired by a book. Uh,
Oh, wow, really? What book? What? This is I see like layers and layers and layers. I love this. Okay, we have to talk about that too.
yeah. I'll talk about. Can I talk about it now? Is that
Yes, of
cool?
course. Yes.
So, yeah. So the whole start of these projects, Awakening Part One and Part Two, started because I was getting married and I started reading books about love because
Mhm.
I felt like, we learn a lot about love from media, from like movies and TV and music as well.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of that, I don't know if I can curse, but
Yeah, go ahead.
a lot of that shit we learn is bullshit.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yep. Sure is. Sure is.
And so, when me and my husband were getting married, I decided, let me like try to learn more about love. And so I started reading some books about love and unconditional love. And in the midst of reading these books, I decided I want to make an album based on this. Like, I'm learning so many things, and there's so much wisdom and insight here. I want to find a way to share this through my music. And so that kind of became the impetus of Awakening Part One. In the process of trying to make that album, I realized that this is going to have to be two albums because it's too much. It's too much to put into one. And
Uh-huh.
so I ended up kind of splitting it up. Like the first project was based more on the book How to Love, written by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's
Ooh.
one of my very favorite. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was a Zen Buddhist teacher.
Mhm.
And his work is just really, really grounding and powerful. And he has a book called How to Love that I read front to back many times. And so the first project was really based on that work. And then the second one, part two, was mostly inspired by a book called All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Mm. Yes, I love
Um,
that book.
yeah, oh, wonderful. You read it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, I love that book. I have to read the first one
Yes.
that you mentioned though. Oh, that's so great. I'm a
Yeah.
romance
So,
girly, so love
yeah, I
that.
love that. I love that. So when I was reading the Bell Hooks book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so like it took me like a year to finish it because well, one, I'm just kind of a slow reader because I like to take my time and process things. But
Yes,
it's one of those books where you read a page and then you have to just put it down and think
yes.
about your life, you know?
Yes, yes. I had started reading it like last February, and then it's just
Mm,
like I have to keep reading it. Like every like week or month, I go back to the book, because I thought it was something I could just read like straight through. And once I read
hmm.
like the first chapter, or it wasn't even the chapter, it was like the introduction. I was like, wait, I gotta sit with this. Like she dropped a lot of knowledge right now.
Look,
I gotta chill. I gotta sit with it. So,
yes.
yes, I love that it's based on it. This makes me so excited because I love that.
Yeah. So I can sit in the physical copy, like in the vinyl and the CD, like there's in the insert, there is a quote before each song lyric that is from the book that tells you like the inspiration that I'm pulling from the book for each song.
Oh,
Um, but I can also send that to you digitally if you want to just listen to it and follow along that way.
yes, I
Um,
will definitely get
I'm
the
trying,
vinyl too, girl. I'll buy it. So I will
yeah.
do that and support you with that because I really do love this album. I was thinking about it like the first time I heard it was maybe like a couple of weeks ago. And then I was like, this is like perfect music for like a Sunday. It just gives you a good
Yes.
Sunday feeling. So, Sunday
Yes.
album, really.
I love that. I was actually born on a Sunday and Sundays are like my favorite day of the week. So I love that comment. Yeah. And for anyone listening, if you do want to purchase the vinyl, I ship them all over the world, even with the tariffs. But you can find them on my Bandcamp page. Cecily Music is my Bandcamp page. Yeah.
Yes, no, we're definitely going to be purchasing this. I'm telling y'all, because if you haven't listened to the album, you need to listen to it first of all. But this is going to be your Sunday album. I'm telling you, it's just so calming to listen to this in the morning. I feel like you just can't listen to a lot of music today in the mornings.
Mhm.
It's too much. It's a little too much. But
Mhm.
this right here, perfect. Perfect for a Sunday morning. Yeah, so I can see that, you got the part 1 from another book, so I have to definitely read that because, like I said, Romance Girly, I feel like I would love that book. And then you got Bell Hook's book for your second part of this project. So are you done with the Awakening series, or are we gonna get a part 3?
For right now, I'm done.
Uh-huh.
Um, what's funny is someone just asked me that the other day. They're like, "When's part 3?" I was like, I'm not really doing a part 3 at the moment." I actually just received a grant this past week
Wow.
to record my next EP, so I'm really excited about that. Um,
Yeah.
yes, I'm very. It's a relief because, to full transparency, I've probably applied for about 4 grants so far for the next project, and I got one. I got one this week, so I'm happy. I
Yeah.
got 2 no's. I got 1 yes, so we're rolling.
Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing. That's
Thank you, thank you,
amazing.
thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So, and I funded my last project. I funded Awakening Part 2 with a grant from the same organization, the local arts council. So, I'm really grateful to have that support again. And so, my goal now, my plan is to start diving a little bit more deeply into writing and fleshing out the songs I've written so far for this next project, and going to the studio this summer. So that's the
Ooh.
plan. Yeah. And tentatively, this next project is called Indigo. That's the working
Mhm.
title. And I'm
Okay.
actually planning to go a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Esoteric. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but I
Mhm.
think of indigo as just the color. For me, indigo, if you're into chakras or energy and those types of things, indigo
Mhm.
is the color of the third eye. And so I started in 2020. I was doing a lot of meditation, and I kept seeing the color indigo,
Mhm.
just like in my meditations. It felt like the color indigo was just like blanketing me.
Uh-huh.
And it felt like that's where spirit was leading me in terms of
Mhm.
what to do next, just like going more in depthly into the ways that spirit leads my life, and also just telling people truths about things I've come to know, things I've come to learn about the fact that, as human beings, we are powerful creators. And as human beings,
Mhm.
we are, reflections of creator. And, that we have a lot of powerful power in our life when we focus our intentionality and we focus on our hearts, our love, because that is the, most invigorating energy is love.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I'm really excited about this project because I think it's going to be a little different. It might be more, I don't know. It's not as concrete as the other ones. It definitely is giving me more freedom to just kind of feel things out and go wherever I'm led to go, and I'm excited about that. So,
Yes, like I think when you have freedom to create, obviously like anything in this world, you can do anything you want. But I think with your projects too, I like that it's going to be, obviously I like your previous work, but something different too as well. And I think you can also get probably a new like influx of fans too, the ones that previously,
hmm
like your work, and then also maybe even your new work will, excite someone to keep listening to your past work. So I like when artists like take chances like that. And I think you just in
hmm
general have such a gorgeous voice. Your voice is so beautiful. And I feel like I can hear it on almost anything. So I'm
oh, thank
excited for
you.
you. Of course, absolutely. Literally. So I cannot wait until this project. Are you starting recording in the summer?
That is the plan. That is the plan. Yeah.
Ooh, yay. So you are currently doing some shows, some live performances. I saw that you have like maybe like one in New York and Philly. So, what can fans really expect from your performances for those who haven't seen you live yet?
Yeah, so I really try to in my performances, like just fill the room up with good energy. Like I like people to just have a good time.
Mhm.
Um, Lots of people tell me they cry during my shows.
Oh, that's the ultimate compliment. I love that.
I'm not trying to make anybody cry, but I'm happy that people just feel comfortable enough to let go, you know? But it's not all tears. We have a lot of fun. My band, most of my band members, we've been playing together for many years now. So we're really locked in. So it's just fun to get on stage with them at any time. And especially when I get to do like my music and sing my favorite songs. And so, yeah, it's an experience. It's definitely an experience. I'm happy to say that like, people really do enjoy coming to my live shows and they always say, when's your next show? I'm gonna invite my friends. And so yeah, I love that I get to honestly what drew me to wanting to do this as a career is that I love performing live.
Oh,
It's like
mhm.
one of my favorite things. I think that was the hardest thing about 2020 was feeling that like withdrawal from not not getting that high of being on stage all the time. So
Mhm.
I'm always happy when I get to be in front of people and just give them what I do, my voice, my heart, my songs.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely would love to see you. I'm like I said, I'm in New Jersey, so I can stop by a New York or a Philly show. So I'm gonna have to come
Yeah,
see
come
you.
through.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. I will be there. Before I let you go, I just want to quickly get into our hot topic based on your song because I love you. I told you like off camera, like about what I thought of the song, which is talking about how much you love someone, but you're still giving them that freedom, to be free and they're not bound to you by any means. And I just thought it was a really beautiful like way that you created this song. So can you just tell me a little bit about the inspiration specifically for that track?
Yeah, so overall, the song is, I'll tell you how it started. So,
Mhm.
it started as a poem that
Mhm.
I wrote, and I met up with the co-writer of the song, Jenna Camille, who's also an amazing artist and producer. And she had her like synth keyboard and her loop pedal, and we were just like in her basement apartment in DC. She lives in New York now, but when she lived in DC,
Mhm.
and so she was just making loops of different ideas, different layers of different things.
Mhm.
And she was just like doing a few back to back. And I was just kind of flipping through my journal and seeing what ideas kind of could lay on top of certain things. And she did this one loop that I really liked and had kind of like some spacey sounds and but with also like some nice like Rhodes piano type of sound in it. And yeah, I started like playing around with this poem, like
Mhm.
and seeing like could I create a melody to fit on top of it. And eventually that became this song, Cause I Love You. And the song really actually I wrote it about my future child. I don't have any children yet, but
Mhm.
I would love to have children. And
Mhm.
I was reading the section of the Bell Hooks book where she talks about the rights of children and how children are full human beings and deserve to be loved in the same way that
Mhm.
everyone else does. Like that includes like no type of abuse, whether that be verbally, physically, like
Mhm.
like if you spank, if you spanked your friend just because they did something bad, people will be like, you're insane. But somehow we
Yeah.
spank our children. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that's how you should treat children. And Bell
No.
Hooks really challenges that.
Mhm.
And another thing she says is that like, even though they come through us, we don't own them. Like they're from God, they're from the divine, they're not from us. We just happen to like give them life, but we
Mhm.
have to give children the freedom to be like whatever God wants them to be.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so that's basically what the song is about. That's like what you're saying, like you don't own, that's what I'm saying in the lyrics, like, I don't own you, you're not mine, came right through me, so divine, but only God and you have seen your true path.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's really important. Like I think as parents, like a lot of times parents they are so scared because they love so much, right? They're so
Mhm.
scared of letting their
Yeah.
child make a wrong decision or something, but you have to trust that like your child has clarity or can find clarity of what they're meant to do in life, and you have
Mhm.
to give them the freedom to do that, with guidance, because offering guidance is a kind of love as well. But that's what the song is about. But once you put a song out into the world, you just let people interpret it how they want to interpret it. And
Mhm.
so I think that, like, all in all, the song is really just about, if you say that you love someone, then this is how you treat them.
Yeah. No.
And we
Yeah.
have to be honest with ourselves that anytime we, you know, act in a way towards someone that we claim to love that is not loving, then
Mhm.
we are not living up to that commitment to love them the way they deserve to be loved. Like when we yell at people, or when we're dismissive of them, when we try to control them, when we don't seek to understand where they're coming from,
Mm.
all these
Yeah.
things. So it's just like, it's really just it's a song just affirming your commitment to love someone well,
Yeah.
no matter who that is, and even yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
That is so true. Because even when I'm listening to the song too, it's not necessary. I love songs that it doesn't have to be like a romantic love. I think that's what everyone kind of goes to, first. And I
Hmm.
think it's just like when you explain it about like, a parent, a child, like I don't have any children either, but we're all children of someone. And I think that
Hmm.
now as adults too, it's just like I always told my mom, even both my parents, even, but especially my mom, it's just that like you have to trust your parenting, and you raised
Mm.
me to be a good person. I believe I'm a good person, so I treat people how they should be treated, and I think you just have to trust in yourself that you put these values in me, that I am going to do well in this world. So it's I think it's just a fear of, you love someone, you don't want anything bad to happen to them. And, you
Yeah.
kind of feel it if something does happen to them. I think about that as an oldest sibling. I have two younger siblings,
Hmm.
both adults now. The youngest is 25, so he's an adult, but anything happens to them bad, even if it's just like so small, like I feel that too because I love them so much. So I think it's
Yeah.
just that, you when you promise to love someone, I might not agree with everything they decide to do, but I have to, let them go, even as their older sibling. That's a show because I'm showing that I trust them that they will make the right decision.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, that's such a beautiful song. That's why it's one of my favorites.
Thank you. It's one of my favorites too, actually. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But thank you so, so much for talking with me today. It was beautiful getting to know you. You brought so much knowledge, stuff I'm mind blown. I'm like still shook from this conversation, some of the stuff. So thank you so, so much again.
Thank you, Autumn. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.